This video will show you how to use the BBraun Perfusor space pump to deliver inhaled Epoprostenol. The first thing we're going to want to do is turn the pump on by pressing the power button. And the pump will go through a series of self-checks. Now at this point we have the option to either load a syringe into the pump or to pre-program the pump. In this case we're going to just load a syringe in, and the way that we're going to do that is to pull on this arm here and rotate it to the side. Fold down the screen door, and then we're going to insert our syringe. In the case of Epoprostenol, we're using a 50 milliliter syringe that's provided by Aerogen. And when we put the syringe into the pump, we need to make sure that the taller part of the flange is facing the up and down position. In order to get it into that position inside the pump, we'll need to rotate it slightly to the side, insert it, and then rotate it into position like so. There's a small teal arm that has to fit next to the flange. We're going to make sure that that flange is in between the teal arm and the pump body. So we'll set it in, rotate it in place, and then using one hand we'll hold the syringe in place and then rotate the arm back to where it belongs. We'll then flip the pump door closed, and then we can go through the programming process. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select the brand of the syringe. In this case we're using BD. That's the only selection in the pump. And we can either press the sideways arrow or we can press OK. This asks us to confirm the syringe type. For inhaled Epoprostenol, we're going to want to use the 50 milliliter size. So we'll scroll down and press OK. The pump is then going to move the drive arm close to the syringe plunger and grab onto the syringe. We'll then prime our line. The pump is asking if we'd like to prime it with 5 milliliters. That's pre-programmed into the pump. We're going to select yes by pressing the up arrow. A warning message shows up on the screen, making sure that we disconnect the line from the Aerogen prior to pressing the OK button. Once we press OK, we'll see the priming process taking place. We'll press OK to confirm that it's stopped. And then the pump will ask us if we'd like to repeat the priming. Generally 5 milliliters is enough to prime the Aerogen tubing, so we're going to say no. If it did not remove all of the air out of your tubing, you'll need to repeat it. However, in this case we're going to say no. So now we can go ahead and press OK to program our infusion. We need to choose the proper drug library. In this case, we're going to be using the adult respiratory drug library. And again, you can press either the sideways arrow or the OK button in order to accept that selection. We're going to find our medication in the drug library. On the adult drug library, we have albuterol and epoprostenol. So we do want to select epoprostenol from the list by scrolling down and then pressing OK. We're going to select the epoprostenol concentration, 1.5 milligrams in 50 milliliters. Press OK. And there's a advisory message that appears that says use ideal body weight or total body weight if it's less than ideal body weight. We're going to hit the sideways arrow. At this point, we can input our ideal body weight into the pump. We're going to use 65 kilos as an example. So we'll scroll up first to achieve the 5. We'll scroll over and then go up to 6 in order to create 65 kilograms. We'll then hit OK. The next screen is a summary screen that shows us all of the inputted data that we had added. So we have our default starting rate pre-programmed into the pump at 0.05 mics per kilo per minute. We have our concentration here of 1.5 milligrams per 50 milliliters, our weight of 65 kilos, and then we can scroll down and we can see some other values here. We can see that this is going to run the pump at 6.5 milliliters per hour. And then below that, we have our volume to be infused. Right now, that's set at 45 milliliters because we've used 5 milliliters of the syringe to prime the line. And as we scroll down, we'll see that this syringe is expected to last about 6 hours and 56 minutes at that dose rate and ideal body weight. Now we'll want to make sure that we connect the aerogen tubing to the aerogen nebulizer, and then we can press the start button. We can see that the pump is delivering the medication by the sideways arrows that are moving. We then see our rate, and it shows the milliliters per hour also being delivered on the screen. Now, if we're going through to do our ventilator check or to record values for the EPO, we can find those values by pressing this button here, the C button, and that will bring us back to our summary screen. And we know that the pump is still running because we have the sideways arrows progressing across the screen. If we scroll down, the pump will show us again our volume remaining and our time remaining, which are both required for documentation of inhaled epoprostenol. If you let the screen set idle for a few seconds, it'll bring you back to the home screen like so. If you'd like to change your dose of epoprostenol, you notice there's a sideways arrow right next to the dose. If we press that, we can change our dose. So in this case, we'll say that we're weaning this patient from 0.05 down to 0.03. So we make the change by pressing the down arrow and hit OK. And now our dose has changed. If we decide that we need to change the syringe, the very first thing that we're going to do is press the stop button, and we're going to remove our syringe. So in order to remove our syringe, the very first thing we need to do is we need the drive arm to release the syringe plunger. In order to do that, we'll pull back on this arm, allow it to go back in, and a message will appear saying opening drive, IV clamped. We're going to say yes. At that point, the drive arm releases the plunger and moves away. Now, when you're changing a syringe, generally the syringe is going to be empty. So this drive arm would actually be sitting all the way down at the end here, preventing you from rotating this to the side. That's why we pulled back first and let it go back in, because we needed that drive arm to move out of the way. So now that the drive arm is out of the way, we can pull back on the arm again, rotate it, open our door, remove the old syringe, We'll reattach our aerogen tubing to the new syringe. Insert the syringe, rotate the flange into place. Close the arm and close the door. Now we do need to go through the process of telling the machine what syringe we're using again, so we're going to use the BD syringe. We need to scroll down to 50 milliliters. We can hit the sideways arrow or OK. Now at this point it's going to ask us if we'd like to prime the line again. Since this syringe is being changed, the previous syringe should not have injected any air into the line because there's no air generally in the syringe. So we shouldn't have to prime it. So we're going to select no. Next it's going to ask us if we'd like to continue the last infusion. We're going to say yes. And then here we have the summary screen of all of the data from our previous infusion. Now what we're going to want to do here in this screen is scroll down and change our volume to be infused, our VTBI, back up to close to 50. Well, we give ourselves a little bit of a buffer room by saying 48 milliliters. So we'll press the sideways arrow to change that value. We can hit clear and then input 48 milliliters and press OK. We now see that this syringe running at 0.03 will last 12 hours and 19 minutes. Now that we've input all of our data, we can press the start button and we're back to infusing. To request a short temporary pause in EPO administration, we can press the stop button. The machine will temporarily stop the infusion, but will remind you after a minute or so that the machine still is stopped. In order to put the machine into a more permanent standby, we'll hold the power button for 3 seconds. We now have a 24-hour timer to where we can restart the Epoprostenol if we need to. In order to cancel the standby, we would press the C button. It brings us back to our summary screen, and we can press start to continue the delivery. To completely stop the Epoprostenol and shut the pump off, we'll need to stop the infusion and remove the syringe. So we've pressed the stop button. We will then move our arm out, then in. Our message asking if the IV is clamped will pop up. We're going to hit yes. The drive arm will move out of the way, and we can rotate the arm out. We'll fold down our door, remove our syringe, fold the door back up, rotate the arm back in, and then hold the power button for 3 seconds to power down the pump. And that concludes basic administration of inhaled epoprostenol with the BBraun Perfusor space pump.